Hey folks, this is Jason Holland. I'm the roving Latin America editor for International Living, and I'm based in Mexico. So in this presentation, this little Facebook Live video, I'm going to be talking to you all about food in Mexico. And I'll warn you right up front, it's not what you think, and tequila is not as dangerous as you think either. We'll also be going over some popular wines and spirits in Mexico as well, blowing some myths out of the water, so to speak. Okay, so first, let me just kick things off by telling you that the Mexican food that you've eaten in the United States, Canada, even Europe, really has only a vague kind of connection to the real food that you'll find when you live and go out to eat in Mexico. The closest approximation I can come up with is perhaps what Italians think of what we call pizza. It's very different over in Naples where they created pizza centuries ago. So that's one way to think about it. Not to say that Mexican food that you find in the U.S. isn't good. It has its place, but it's not authentic Mexican food. And I'm going to show you what real Mexican food looks like. Okay, so I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about street food in Mexico. It's not as dangerous as you think. There are a lot of misconceptions about Mexican food, food and drink in Mexico. So hopefully I can, come up with some explanations so you can see what it's really like to eat out in Mexico. Okay, first of all, Mexico is a big country. It's about 3 times the size of Texas. There are dozens of indigenous peoples that still live in these different areas. They all have different cultures, different traditions, and different foods. So the indigenous traditions, as well as the Spanish colonial traditions and food traditions brought by immigrants from around the world over the centuries, even to modern day immigrants, expats coming over to live in Mexico, have really influenced cuisine in Mexico. So what you find is a big melting pot of cuisines and traditions in Mexican food, and you're going to see that expressed in different areas of Mexico having different local traditional cuisines. It's not one thing to say Mexican food. It doesn't blanket the country. Each kind of region of the country has its own food traditions. It's kind of like in the U.S., where food in the South is much different than food over on the West Coast, for example. So that's one way to think about it. Now, in Mexico, there's all sorts of options for eating out. You can go to, mid-range family-style restaurants. We have high-end Michelin-star restaurants, especially in places like Mexico City. But my favorite places to eat are more of the local places. You have neighborhood restaurants run by families with a limited menu, and everything costs about $1 or $2. That's where a lot of locals go, after work or for lunch. They go to these little local run places, get a few tacos, some soup, maybe a salad, and a fruit juice for a couple bucks. Very affordable. You also have plenty of street food in Mexico. And this is for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Little stands seem to pop up on the street corners. Maybe a tiny little storefront will open its little awning for the afternoon taco rush when people are getting home from work and they want a snack or something. You have the vendors that come out early every morning to catch the people who are commuting to work and selling tamales. Tamales is a cornmeal-based thing, and they wrap it around chicken or different items. And usually there's green or red chilies, spicy salsa inside as well, wrapped in a corn husk and then steamed, and that's how that is prepared. And you drink atole, which is also a cornmeal-based drink. That's kind of a breakfast item. Another interesting breakfast in Mexico, and you can get this all over, is the chilaquiles, and these are tortillas that are fried, and they're hard, and they're covered in cheese, a red or green sauce, onions. You can get a fried egg or some chicken on that as well. And that's believe it or not, a very favorite traditional breakfast in Mexico, available pretty much around the country. We have grilled corn also, and this is a very famous dish, and I've seen this at some kind of hipster taco places in the U.S. When I've visited. Basically, it's a corn cob grilled over charcoal, and then they slather it with mayo. They put some lime juice on it, and then put some chili powder on it as well. So you can eat that, and then they put cotija cheese on the whole thing. So you heard that right: mayo, cheese, chili powder, lime juice, corn on the cob. Or you can get it also in a cup as well. My favorite are the tacos. So taco stands can be found in every Mexican town or city. Some are kind of open all day. Some kind of open up later at night or in the mid-afternoon. You have your favorite taco stand that you go to again and again. They do it how you like it. And tacos are usually about 15 pesos each, which is less than a dollar basically per taco. And you can get a bunch. And there are all sorts of different tacos. Tacos al pastor is marinated pork that's put on a spit and flame broiled. It's actually a legacy of Lebanese immigrants, Middle Eastern immigrants who came to Mexico. If you've ever had shawarma or kebabs or things like that, where they have a spit of lamb and beef, and then they shave bits off of it to put on your pita bread. It's a very similar concept to the tacos al pastor, except they're using marinated pork. You also have chorizo, you have longaniza, another type of sausage. You have chicharron, which is pork skin. You have one called cabeza, which is the steamed and shredded meat of a cow's head, combined with things like salsa, chopped onions, and cilantro. The tremendous variety of tacos, and most taco stands have all sorts of them available on their menus. Another one is tortas, and these are basically, that's a Mexican word for sandwich. These are big, hearty sandwiches with all sorts of different toppings. Ham, chicken, avocado. You can get pretty much anything you want. Fried egg, pretty much anything you want. Sausage you can get on a torta. And this is very popular at lunchtime, and you can get these at small restaurants, street stalls, as well as market stalls as well. Gorditas is another favorite item, and this is a thick tortilla, and they cut a little pocket into it, and then they put the toppings, which could be refried beans and cheese, chicken with salsa, different meats and things like that. Every gordita place has a row of like crock pots, basically, where the señoras who make the gorditas, they make the tortillas right there. They slit them open and they ask you what toppings that you want, and you can pick from a dozen different varieties. Now, some people are kind of scared, I guess, of eating Mexican street food. You've all heard the stories of Montezuma's revenge and people getting sick at the street stalls. And perfectly understandable. That's been a fear of mine before I moved to Mexico and kind of started going out and eating at the street stalls regularly and not really ever getting sick. So the way I think about it, and this is something I saw on an Anthony Bourdain TV program when he was traveling somewhere, I think it was somewhere in the Middle East, but the same kind of sentiment holds true in Mexico. If people were getting sick eating at these street food stalls, the places would soon go out of business if they weren't keeping up with hygiene standards, and people were going home and feeling sick after they ate there. They wouldn't be in business for very long. So I think these street stalls are doing something right, and you don't have to worry as much as you think, about the hygiene and sanitary standards of these street food stalls. Okay, so something else to consider, I'm just going through my notes here, are some other popular dishes. We have pozole, which is a soup made with pork and beans and hominy, which look like big fat corn kernels. And it's cooked in a pork or chicken stock. You add chilies in there. A very hearty, filling, savory soup. Ceviche is basically chopped up fish or shrimp, oysters, different things like that, marinated in lime juice, citrus juice. You add onions, chopped up red and green coriander, which is another name for cilantro. Cilantro is in a lot of dishes in Mexico. So that's a big item, mostly on the seacoast. You'll find it throughout the country, but I always like to get it when I'm at the beach. Places like Puerto Vallarta, Los Cabos, the Riviera Maya. If I'm on the beach somewhere, I always get ceviche and a cold beer. Now, as I mentioned, every kind of region in Mexico has its own kind of special food traditions, and I'll go through a few of those with you now. Over on the Yucatan, you have a real influence from the Maya people. And you have things like cochinita pibil, which is a marinated roast pork. They marinated in achiote sauce. Salbutes are similar to gorditas, but they are crispy fried tortillas, and they top them with shredded meats, lettuce, tomatoes, and different toppings like that, cheese generally. Now you go down to Oaxaca, you have something called tlayuda, which is kind of like a Mexican pizza. Maybe this is where Taco Bell got their idea for their Mexican pizza. I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that. But it's basically a large, thin tortilla, and they put some pork lard on it. They toast it up so it's crispy over a flat kind of griddle called the comal, and then they load it up with toppings. That's kind of a very popular street food, kind of a late night dish. After you've been out clubbing and partying all night, you go get one of these, and you, I guess, feel better. That's the idea before you go home. Mole is from all over Mexico. You may have heard of mole sauce. It's available all throughout Mexico. Each kind of part of Mexico has its own version of mole, but the state of Oaxaca, far down south, is probably most famous for it. Now, if you've heard of mole, you might think of it as that, oh, it's that Mexican kind of savory chocolate sauce. And while some moles do have that chocolate flavoring because they use cacao and chocolate basically in the sauce, that's not really what mole is all about. Mole is made with dozens of ingredients. My wife did a cooking class where she and the other students, under supervision of a chef, were making mole, and it had like 43 different ingredients. These are things like spicy chilies, herbs, pumpkin seeds, different spices, and all sorts of different things all go into this sauce. It's very time intensive to make, but very delicious. Moles tend to be sweet and savory, sometimes very spicy. It's not just one thing, there are a wide variety of moles. And then you put them on chicken, different pork dishes, and things like that. Lots of things made with mole. Now, if you've had fish tacos, you have some enterprising food person over in Baja California to thank for that creation. They say in Baja California that is where they created the battered and fried fresh fish tacos, usually with some cabbage and a nice salsa on there. Okay, so I also want to talk to you about drinks, because I think there's a lot of misunderstandings about drinks in Mexico. And, everybody knows Corona beer. It's kind of a brand ambassador for Mexico worldwide, especially in the United States. But Mexican beer is about so much more than Corona. Like with the food traditions, which were really inspired by immigrants to Mexico in a lot of ways, the beer scene in Mexico was as well. There was a large group of German immigrants that came to Mexico starting a couple hundred years ago. They brought an influence in music. You can hear the beginnings of polka in a lot of some Mexican regional music, believe it or not, and that comes from those German immigrants. German immigrants also brought their beer tradition. So a lot of the breweries in Mexico really took their influence, their inspiration from German breweries. So you will find a lot of different varieties of beer in Mexico. Light beer, dark beer. We have a nice up-and-coming craft beer scene in Mexico as well. If you're into specialty microbrews like India Pale Ales and porters and stouts and things like that, you can find all that in Mexico as well, both imported as well as homegrown breweries. Every place I've been to in Mexico had at least one or two different craft breweries that you could go to a tasting and enjoy what was being crafted by those local brewers, kind of jumping on the craft beer bandwagon. So that's a lot of fun. Now, the last thing I want to cover is something that is a sore subject for some people, a tough subject to bring up with some people, including some folks I knew back in college who overdid it with tequila. Now, tequila is kind of like the butt of the joke a lot of times. You want to, kind of joke with somebody that they had a bad night and they went out and they don't remember what happened, or they made a fool of themselves, and they say, oh, it was that tequila. I did so many shots of that Jose Cuervo, and I just couldn't control myself, and all that good stuff. I think that's a big kind of myth that's going around. People don't really understand in a lot of countries outside of Mexico what tequila really is and how it's not really being fairly portrayed in the mass media or popular culture. Once you get to Mexico, you quickly learn that tequila is not Jose Cuervo, which I'm not really convinced is actual real tequila, at least the mass market, the stuff that's available in the US. I'm not sure it's made with 100% agave, which is basically the gold standard for tequila. They take it very seriously in Mexico. The government has kind of put a stamp of approval on all the real tequila that's made in Mexico. First, it has to be 100% agave. Agave is a plant, kind of looks like a cactus, has a bunch of spikes coming out of it, and they basically harvest that plant. They take off the spiny leaves, and they get to the heart of it, which is called a piña. And that's how they actually distill the Escal. They press that down, get the juice out of this heart of the agave plant, and they distill it, and that becomes tequila. And only if it's made with 100% agave, no added industrial alcohol or any flavorings or colorings or anything, can it actually be called tequila. And actual real tequila is quite nice. It's quite smooth. It comes in a lot of different flavor profiles. There's tequila tastings, like you would have like a wine tasting or a beer tasting. You can have tequila tastings when you're in Mexico. And when you have the right person, you can really see the range of different types of tequila available. So this is not something that you're slamming back shots and then sucking a lime or whatever else. These are items that you can sip on. You sip on, you sit back with your friends and you just sip some tequila slowly, enjoy the flavor, enjoy that flavor profile. You don't shoot it back, like a shot. And pretty much any time you go to a party in Mexico, there is a bottle of good tequila waiting. Often for the end of the night, when you say you have to go, your host might be like, hey, stay for one more tequila. And that ends up somehow being another 3 or 4 tequilas. But that's a story for another day. And I also want to mention real quick mezcal, which is kind of very similar to tequila, but it has more of a smoky taste. So maybe a cross between tequila and maybe a fine Scotch whiskey or something like that, that kind of peaty, smoky flavoring. And that's because it has a very similar process to making tequila, except they smoke the piña, that thing that they distill the tequila from. They smoke that before they distill it, and it gives that smoky flavor to the mezcal. And like tequila, mezcal has some bad reputation in the U.S. You might think of the bottle with the little worm in it, kind of sold as a novelty to tourists in Mexico. That is not what real mezcal is. Again, hasn't been made from 100% agave, no colorings or flavorings or anything like that. And again, you just sip mezcal and enjoy it. So with both drinks, you can make margaritas, a classic. And if you're looking for another drink to make with tequila, look at a Paloma. Paloma is tequila, grapefruit, and again, you put some salt on the lime. Okay, so that was food and drink in Mexico. Hopefully I educated you a little bit about what it's really like to go out to eat and drink in Mexico and all the delicious specialty items that we have. Again, you can visit street food stalls and eat, go to the markets, buy your groceries, sit down, have a nice taco or a torta. And, you can do that and, be sure that you're going to be in good health afterwards. There's so much good food in Mexico, and it's very cheap as well. You can go out to even mid-range or high-end restaurants and spend about a third or a half of what you would for a similar quality restaurant in the United States. Okay, so I'm going to end this video now, but what I want everybody to do is go check out the link in the description that will take you to International Living's Mexico kind of homepage. It's the collection of all things Mexico, basically. You get information on different locations, how to get a residence visa, how to buy real estate, all sorts of practical considerations. And we also have a lot of profiles of people living happily in Mexico now as well. And if you have any questions about Mexico, if you have any questions about food in Mexico in particular, please put a comment below this video. Let me know. I'll be checking this thread for the next few days to see if anybody has any questions or comments so I can answer those. And you can also reach me directly at jholland@internationalliving.com. So JHOLLAND at internationalliving.com. I'm happy to answer any questions and help you out any way I can if you have questions about Mexico. So thank you very much and have a great evening.